Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to join my colleagues today to commemorate this incredible anniversary of this incredible event. 58 years ago, in May of 1961, the year that I was born, President John F. Kennedy appeared before Congress and boldly declared that the United States would send an American to the moon before the end of the decade. There's no small task, obviously. Programs had to be funded, scientific advancements had to be made, foreign adversaries had to be kept at bay. As the head of NASA's Space Task Force group said, quote, "Flying a man to the moon required an enormous advance in the science of flight in a very short time." But President Kennedy was not deterred. Ignoring conventional wisdom and the ever-present naysayers, he pressed on, and so did the patriotic Americans that were charged with making this happen. A few years later, NASA began their Apollo missions, and the necessary scientific advancements became reality. In October of 1968, Apollo 7 became the first Apollo mission in space and conducted the very first live TV program of a United States spacecraft. Apollo 8 launched 2 months later and successfully orbited the moon. Apollo 9 carried the first lunar module into orbit in March of 1969, and we were getting closer. Apollo 10 launched in May. It was a full dress rehearsal for the Apollo 11 mission. They were successful. We were ready. So 50 years ago yesterday, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins launched the Apollo 11 mission to fulfill President Kennedy's promise. They were landing on the moon. That week, my 8-year-old self and an estimated 650 million of my closest friends from around the world watched Neil Armstrong land on the moon and plant our nation's flag. He offered the famous phrase, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Mr. President, that giant leap was a monumental moment in history for sure, and it didn't happen in the abstract. It was the result of hundreds of years, really, of scientific discovery and decades of work from countless public servants who devoted their lives to this cause. Apollo 10 gave Apollo 11 the confidence that the operation would be successful. Apollo 7 gave us the opportunity to see their success with our own eyes. Apollo 1 astronauts in a fatal 1967 tragedy gave their lives to this mission. That giant leap happened because of the small steps taken before it, and those who took that giant leap are pressing on even today. Scientific discovery and space exploration made possible of those missions continue to this day, including in my great state of North Dakota. Just a few years after the moon landing, the University of North Dakota's John Odegaard asked Buzz Aldrin to come to our state to help him start a space education program within the University of North Dakota, and Buzz Aldrin said yes. He left, of course, the state ultimately, but the program stayed, and it grew. Today, students from across the globe enroll in the University of North Dakota to learn about the cutting-edge technologies and scientific breakthroughs in space exploration. Some of their recent endeavors provide vital insights for future space explorations, including for a mission to Mars. And Mr. President, North Dakotans don't just learn, they get involved. Some even become astronauts. New Rockford's own James Buckley joined NASA in 1979, and 6 years later became the first North Dakotan to go to space. And he's now in the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame. Shortly after Buckley's spaceflight came West Fargo's Tony England, who launched into space 6 months later. England's career is marked by his work 15 years earlier at Mission Control, where he and others heard the chilling words, "Houston, we have a problem." England's team helped save the lives of those on the Apollo 13 mission that day. Then Jamestown's Rick Heeb launched into space 3 times starting in 1991. And the University of North Dakota's 1994 graduate, Karen Nyberg, was the 50th woman ever to launch into space. She did it first in 2008. She also spent 6 months on the International Space Station in 2013 and now serves on the board of the University of North Dakota School of Aerospace Sciences Foundation, giving back to her alma mater. As you can see, Mr. President, North Dakotans leave an outsized mark in the world of space exploration, and they're just getting started. The University of North Dakota touts over 100 students taking graduate classes in the Department of Space Studies, and they have handed out nearly 800 Master of Science degrees in space studies since the program began. I'm optimistic about the roles these leaders will play in the future, following the leads of giants like Buzz Aldrin and Karen Nyberg. I was only 8 years old during the Apollo 11 mission. Like most Americans, I found it to be an exhilarating experience, even watching it on my parents' black and white television. But I know I didn't fully grasp the importance of what I was watching that day. I worry, Mr. President, sometimes that many people still don't. Space was, is, and will be integral to our way of life, and we must continue to maintain our commercial, technological, and military edge in this important domain. I hope we use this anniversary as an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to space exploration and to remind ourselves of the impact investments made today can have on our future. And along the way, perhaps we can renew that unifying American spirit that was so prevalent on that day 50 years ago, and perhaps even give inspiration to aspiration once again. I yield.